Welcome everybody to the Livepeer Project update community call. So I'm Stephen, hosting here as part of the Livepeer ecosystem marketing team. But of course, this will be live stream. This will be recorded. So yeah, if anybody didn't get here in time, just let them know. This will go up on our channels later. But yeah, today we're just going to share some information about the project, what's been going on lately, what's coming up soon. And we're going to start off with Doug, who will give us the highlights of the project lately. Over to you.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Stephen. Thanks everyone for joining. We do these calls once a quarter. The focus of this one is just giving a general quarterly project update on kind of what some of the highlights were, what some of the network metrics were, what's being built. Let me share my screen so I can run through a bit of a presentation here. To remind everyone, I'm one of the founders of the project. Been working on Livepeer for over 5 years, and also the CEO of Livepeer Inc., a company that builds products and services that bring demand onto the Livepeer network. So kind of focused on making Livepeer successful from all angles. Cool. So as a reminder, Livepeer's mission is to build the world's open video infrastructure. For today's call, I'll give a quick kickoff and a project update. Eric, my co-founder, is going to talk about Livepeer Studio and Web3 video specifically. And Yondon, our other project co-founder, is going to give a kind of research update on video specific to Web3, and we'll have some time for questions. Also, I'm in presentation mode, so I don't see the chat window, but if the chat's open, feel free to send questions in along the way. Definitely happy to take them as they come. That's the point of this call, to make sure people can ask questions and get them answered. And Stephen, don't hesitate to interrupt me if you see anything that needs attention.
Will do.
All right, so quarterly kickoff. What was happening kind of last quarter and up to the current date, focusing around April, May, June, early July. I think we should acknowledge that everyone that has been paying attention to the crypto world, the Web3 world, the blockchain world, definitely felt it to be a rougher quarter than it has been in recent years, when we've been in this kind of era of exuberance and a frothy bull market, especially financially. A lot of people who were invested in the space and put a lot of time and effort and energy and capital into projects felt a lot of pain with declining crypto asset prices and some projects blowing up entirely and everything. So definitely want to acknowledge it's been a tough quarter for many. I think there's just in the Livepeer kind of tunnel vision view, if you will. I think we have it a lot better because Livepeer is not a speculative crypto financial project, but is actually backed by real usage of a real underlying video network, and video is disconnected from speculative crypto asset price swings. And we can talk about how Livepeer did relate to that. But of course, negativity in the market and the sentiment around these, this industry as a whole, affects our community, our team, our project, and everything. And certainly we'll be continuing to build and making progress towards when the markets turn and kind of sentiment is more positive in this space, like it has been in recent years. Cool. So what's been our focus for this quarter? It's this past quarter and continuing going forward. It's really Livepeer aiming to be the video platform of Web3. This is a really exciting time for Livepeer, because I mentioned we've been working on this for 5 years, but if you go back 4 years ago, 3 years ago, there was actually no or very few developers building use cases that were ready to leverage media and video and content in Web3. People were building token use cases and speculative financial use cases, and a lot of the infrastructure and plumbing to make kind of Web3 and blockchain connected applications possible. But now we're finally seeing these really exciting use cases that do need and leverage video and media and a lot of the capabilities that Livepeer and other infrastructure projects can bring. And we're super well positioned to be the video platform that all these applications are built on. So that's been an exciting moment for the whole project. Eric is certainly going to talk about some of the different use cases and Livepeer Studio and whatnot, so I won't get deep into that, but just to shine examples on some of these use cases, we're seeing social applications being built. We're seeing creator economy applications being built. Gaming apps are all connecting to the blockchain. Metaverses are all being built around blockchain, need to leverage video. And so rather than just being a cost-effective transcoding platform that's competing with every other video product and platform out there for traditional industry, which of course Livepeer can do, we have the opportunity to be the leading video platform that all of these blockchain connected use cases build on. So that's a super exciting opportunity that we've been focused on. It's worth noting our orchestrator network, which I think is really like I've described as like the beating heartbeat of the Livepeer project, is all our node operators and delegators who stake towards them to operate this network. They've been performing great to meet demand from both the traditional Web 2, but all these emerging Web 3 use cases. So that's been no surprise when you see this kind of network of enthusiastic orchestrators who are so passionate about supporting the project. Not surprised, but it's great to see it. It's key to the continued success of the project. I have high confidence that continues to fulfill its purpose and potential, and they're doing such great work to kind of expand the capabilities of the network and make it easier for people to use the network as well. So that side's going great. A lot of the focus of kind of the core team and Livepeer Inc., the company I run, has really been on productizing and generating demand in order to capture this opportunity. So in this update and looking forward, you'll hear a lot of talk about kind of products and demand and getting more usage on the network, really as I think a big high impact priority relative to focusing a lot on continuing to kind of expand the size of the supply side and whatnot in the interim. Cool. So one of the big milestones, probably the biggest milestone and most exciting thing, is the launch of Livepeer.studio. This is an iteration of what used to live at livepeer.com, and it's really a toolkit for Web3 video applications. It's really about putting Web3 and blockchain connected video very much at the center of our products and the center of sort of the users we're trying to attract, or ones who identify that they're building these blockchain Web3 connected use cases. Eric is going to talk more about this, so I won't get into details, but if you haven't checked out Livepeer.studio, check out the website and supporting blog and Twitter account, because there's a lot of great case studies and content and examples of how to use video in Web3. And really the launch was just the first step. It's going to be a great home to iterate and showcase all the users, use cases, different types of things you can build when you leverage blockchain connected video. Another part of kind of leaning into this Web3 opportunity, being the video platform of Web3, is exhibiting leadership when it comes to inspiring developers who are flocking to this industry and trying to understand themselves, hey, what does blockchain and Web3 uniquely enable when it comes to content, when it comes to the creator economy, when it comes to gaming, when it comes to live streaming, when it comes to social? What's possible that wasn't possible before? That's how all kind of technology innovation cycles occur. Something new becomes possible, and then there's this amazing inflow of developers who are experimenting with it, and then people latch on to the things that are really disruptive, and that disruption kind of creates and replaces existing industries with new things that grow to even bigger scale. And Web3 and blockchain is one of those disruptions, and blockchain connected video is a key element, because video is such an important part of social and media and gaming and these use cases. And so we're trying to exhibit this leadership by partnering with other projects in the space, like Lens Protocol, focused on social, and Protocol Labs, which the builders behind Filecoin, and investment firms that are investing in the space, and hosting a series of kind of events which create the space for developers and builders to brainstorm around what's possible, to share ideas, to build and hack demos together. Hackathons have been a core part of this. So, there's some pictures from the Solana Hacker House. We've been at all the ETH ecosystem events like ETH New York and ECC in Paris recently, partnering with layer 1 and layer 2 development ecosystems like Polygon, and hosting Twitter spaces and events to focus not just on, hey, Livepeer's video, build video, but really on the future of, what's possible with social, what's possible with gaming, what's possible with metaverse when it comes to blockchain connected video and other building blocks and components as well. So I think ecosystem leadership will continue to be a big part of the strategy. I definitely invite everyone in the community to take part in this, because these are all community-centric events, and the content is often driven by members of the communities of all of these projects. So our Discord chat is a great hub to talk about, hey, what are the next events where we're hosting something, or where there's going to be big group conversations or hackathons or conferences, because these happen all around the world, and there's always Livepeer community members and team members there and present. I think ETH LATAM in Buenos Aires is going to be one of the next big opportunities. Cool. Quick update. I always want to give an update on the network and kind of the project and core metrics. Currently, Livepeer network is sitting at 4,299 delegator accounts. I wonder if we passed 4,300 today, up 116 from kind of last update last quarter. 100 active orchestrators, so that's a full set. The participation rate on the network sitting at 48.8%. That's largely stayed below the magic 50% number. And to remind everyone why that number matters, if the participation rate is below 50%, then the inflation ticks up a little bit. And so every day, some more Livepeer tokens are minted than would have been minted the day before. When we're above 50%, then that inflation rate ticks down a little bit, and not as many tokens would have been minted as the day before, potentially. And the notion here is that we're just trying to incentivize about half of the tokens to be staked, actively participating in the network, leaving half available for liquidity and experimentation and other use cases as well. And so largely it's been sitting below 50% this quarter, which has meant this inflation rate has been rising. And the current Livepeer token supply is just shy of 26 million. And I think in yesterday's round, when I pulled this number, there was 7,204 Livepeer tokens minted in that round, or could have been minted in that round if every node called reward, distributed to our node operators and the delegators staking towards them. That number, I don't have the difference here, but I think last report that number was in the 5,000 or 6,000 range. So you see that there is kind of quite a bit of inflation right now, which provides an incentive of, if you're staked, you'll kind of earn a 20% kind of yield per annualized at the current inflation rate, just through Livepeer token rewards itself, which hopefully is a pretty attractive participation incentive for people to get involved and stake and be part of this network. Exciting update, a new Explorer launched, and you can check that out at explorer.livepeer.org. We talked about that on other weekly calls and whatnot. But one difference is it does a really good job of showing these network statistics right when you arrive on the page. So I encourage you to check that out. I'll show another slide from the Explorer that kind of highlights some actions you can take as well. Okay, minutes transcoded. So this is kind of interesting. If you look at the previous quarters going back to the beginning of last year, you see that every single quarter, the number of minutes increased from 4.9 million over the quarter all the way up to 33 million last quarter. And this quarter they stayed flat. We were almost exactly the same at 33 million minutes. It's reflective of a couple things. Part of it's seasonal. A large part of this is due to the fact that with the shift to focusing on Web3, we actually grew kind of the developer number of accounts and apps and usage and hacks tremendously due to the Web3 market's fast growth and the interest in using Livepeer to power video stuff. But those applications don't necessarily result in a lot of minutes on the network because none of them are at scale. Whereas in these previous quarters, a lot of the growth was focused by onboarding more kind of traditional Web2 streaming companies that had scaled amounts of users that would actually kind of impact these metrics more dramatically as they onboarded. And so, you might ask the question, well, why shift focus? Why focus on Web3? Why not just go get more traditional users? I think a lot of it is a big bet, and it's a belief that Web3 is the development platform of the future. And in the Web3 world, Livepeer is super well positioned to be the leader that everyone builds upon. And it's only a short matter of time now that some of these use cases like social gaming, et cetera, are adopting Web3, that there are breakout applications with millions of users and tens, hundreds of millions of minutes of video streamed. And Livepeer is really well positioned to be the solution they choose. Whereas in the Web2 world, yes, you can go and kind of compete on cost. And I think that is a compelling value prop of Livepeer, and certainly something that can be returned to, or people can build companies dedicated to that mission. But I think it's it's crowded, it's competitive, and it takes a real focus to go after that market. And I think this team, this community, this project, deeply rooted in our culture, is to be focused on sort of the Web3 disruption, the Web3 opportunity, and the big bet that Web3 is the platform of the future. And so I'm comfortable with kind of the minutes stream being flat while kind of developer growth was up. And you can also look at it compared to other Web3 protocols in a quarter where everything was down across the board, from token prices to usage to wallets to trading volumes to et cetera. The fact that Livepeer's kind of usage remained steady is actually a really positive signal that this project should be valued by its true utility and its usage, and not necessarily just due to speculative crypto market sentiment. So that was minutes streamed. Fees earned. So fees earned by our node operators. I think this is where Livepeer Project actually feels the kind of negative crypto market, bear market, more than anything. The kind of dollar value of the fees that hit the pockets of our hardworking node operators certainly decreased quite a bit, because the value of ETH decreased, and it's not necessarily a totally efficient market with many broadcasters competing to update their prices with ETH price swings and whatnot as well. And so we did see a 15% drop in kind of ETH fees, and 59% drop in fees as it relates to kind of the conversion to US dollar value of those fees. So definitely a pain point for our network and node operators, and definitely something we look to increase by onboarding more demand and allowing that market pricing to be kind of more efficient and fluctuate accordingly. Some good news for node operators and token holders is that because of kind of the increase in the inflation rate, revenue from staking rewards and the ETH or the LPT rewards that node operators earned grew in LPT terms. So if you're kind of a long-term participant in the network and continuing to stake your Livepeer token, you're kind of earning more LPT and increasing your ownership at a faster rate than you would have in previous quarters. And the majority of the rewards and compensation typically comes from the LPT incentives at the current moment anyway. And so hopefully that helps balance out or ease the sting of some of the decrease in fees on the network. Cool. One update that came along with the Explorer is that token holding delegators, users who stake their token, have a more clear view of something that I think is really powerful, of A, how they can help the network, but B, doing it in a way that actually helps them maximize their return. And what I'm highlighting here in this screenshot is that the Explorer right there on the homepage now shows our node operators and lets you sort by the kind of the yield or the estimated yield that they have delivered based on like the recent most 30 days performance. And so this kind of calculator lets you as a user say how many tokens you're looking to stake and how long you're looking to hold them. And what it will what it will do is it'll kind of forecast a yield that you'll generate from both the LPT that you stake and the ETH fees that the node operators share based on their fee shares. And there's some really interesting data here. So on the chart on the left, what you see is that I've sorted by stake, and you see the orchestrators have the most stake delegated towards them. And what you see is that their yields that you would earn by staking 150 LPT are typically in the like 21 to 24% range. which is great. And you can stake towards any of these node operators, and they're pretty. Many of them are pretty reliable at calling reward, and hopefully generate this sort of return for you as a delegator who's kind of routing work towards them and helping QA the network by doing the staking. On the other hand, on the right side, you can actually forecast. You can sort by forecasted yield, and when you do this, you actually see something pretty interesting, which is that the high yields actually are generated by nodes that have a very low amount of delegated stake. And why is that? It's because they are hopefully performing well and earning a lot of ETH through transcoding. And when they share a portion of that ETH back to their delegators, if you have a lot of stake on them, you're earning a much larger portion of that ETH that's being split up amongst all its delegators. And so for your 150 LPT that's staked, you're actually earning quite a bit of ETH on that in addition to the LPT, which they're hopefully reliably generating as well. And why is this helpful to the network? Why would, you may earn a better yield, that's good for you as a delegator. Why is that helpful to the network? It's helpful to the network because what you're doing is you're placing more stake and more security on the nodes that are kind of underrepresented and performing well, and you're giving the ability for them to compete for more work and perform more potential work. And hopefully, if all the incentives line up, that creates a kind of more dispersed geographically, physically, data center wise network with node operators spread all around the world that are all high performing and are incentivized to kind of activate and perform well very quickly because they know they can attract stake. That'll help them earn more LPT through their reward cut. They'll become owners in the network. They'll reinvest in their hardware setups and become really high performers with a lot of stake themselves. And so there's actually like action that delegators can take to kind of chase yield and return in a way that helps the network as well. And I think that's a really powerful small update to the Explorer. I think more iterations can surface this even better. But I think it's a good update for delegators to focus on this quarter. Cool. Let's see. Yeah, last thing I'm going to say, top priorities over the next 3 months looking ahead. Again, I hit on this. It's really to establish Livepeer as the leading Web3 video platform through both kind of the ecosystem leadership, through the product work that we're doing that Eric and Yondon are going to share updates on. And it's really focused on kind of growing numbers across 3 areas. One, the number of developers that touch Livepeer and actively run at least a single stream through Livepeer. That's kind of the top of the funnel, and we want to reach and educate more developers and have them try Livepeer and begin to hack and experiment. From there, as a community, we definitely want to support these developers towards building growth apps or applications that stream at least 1,000 minutes a month that we can showcase, that serve as great examples and inspirations for what's possible with Web3 video. And some of them hopefully break out well beyond that and lead to millions of minutes a month of usage, like some of the big users today currently. Hopefully some break out even further and become the next TikTok built in Web3 connected with Web3 connected primitives. And then finally, the metric that we've always looked at that we care about, that's kind of at the core of what we do, this will all lead to minutes, a growing number of minutes streamed through the network, and therefore growing fees and value to node operators, delegators as well. I set a target for a number of minutes myself, wanting to increase it by 10%. You may say that's not an enormous number or an enormous amount of growth. We're coming off of a flat quarter. Why only 10% increase? It's really just reflective of the timeline of this Web3 focus and thinking that, I hope that this quarter there are breakout Web3 applications that scale to millions of minutes. If I had to bet on it, I think it's probably before the end of the year. It's probably like in, the Q4 months when you start to see some of these social applications, which are all being experimented with now begin to find some hits and breakouts. So, you might see more conservative minutes growth, setting expectations, in the next couple of months. But, I think looking out, 3 to 6 months or 3 to 9 months is when we really start to see some more explosive growth. Awesome. So that's the high level update. As I mentioned, Eric and Yondon are going to get more into the product and research updates as well. But in the meantime, if anyone had any questions, happy to answer them.
Okay,
guess we're good.
Yeah. If nobody has any questions right now, we will have time for questions at the very end. So if you think of something later for Doug, just throw it in the chat, scribble it down. We'll get at that at the very end. But for now, we're going to go over to Eric, who's going to talk about Livepeer Studio and Web3 video disruption.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Yeah, I'm Eric. I'm the co-founder and CTO at Livepeer. So I want to give everyone an update about some specific product areas that we've been focusing on in the last quarter, and give a little bit of a kind of a perspective into what we're working on for the next quarter or even the next few quarters from a product perspective. So before we dive into the product, I think it's important for us to kind of revisit like why we're working on Livepeer, why we want to make Web3 video enabled, right? Here's a chart that shows kind of the global share of internet traffic that's video based, right? So what we see here is over 80% of all the traffic on the internet is video today. And this is already old data, right? 2021, I think this number has grown even more in the last year. And so we're in this exponential growth phase for video streaming in general, because we're finding out that video streaming is just such an important tool for us to communicate, for entertainment, for all these different use cases. And as Web3, as the Web3 industry as a whole is kind of getting beyond the speculative phase and the financialization of the technology, and kind of going into this consumer adoption phase, video becomes a really, really important tool for applications that are building in the Web3 space to be able to onboard this new wave of consumers. And at Livepeer, our goal is really to build tools for developers that are building in this space to make it easy for them to not only add video into their applications, but also to make those experiences very native to the values that they're building into their application, so that we don't get back into the same problems of walled gardens and privacy issues in this Web2 world. So diving in a little bit, what did we do in Q2 from a product perspective? A few things. The big thing that we focused on was launching Livepeer Studio, right? Livepeer Studio is the one-stop shop for application developers in Web3 that want to add video streaming capabilities into their applications. This is it's a hosted service, and it's also the kind of the gateway to the Livepeer network itself. Currently, it contains a video on demand service, which allows anybody to build an application that allows user to upload a video and then be able to stream it back, right? So think of enabling people to build a decentralized version of a YouTube. It contains live streaming capabilities, which means developers can build an application that allows their users to go live in front of an audience, right? So think of a decentralized Twitch, if you would say. And then it also contains NFT minting capability especially for the video that are already uploaded into Livepeer, right? So this can be a NFT marketplace, can be a social application, and they will be able to use this minting SDK to mint video-based NFTs. Currently, the minting SDK supports any EVM-based chains, but the entire this tool itself and this service itself is very much chain agnostic. So we've been looking to grow the footprint in many different layer one ecosystems. I'm going to get into the details of this tool a little bit, but I also want to highlight a few other things that are important kind of product accomplishments in Q2 that we haven't been as focused on externally. And a lot of this is kind of releases that we've worked on the software stack, right? So as many of you know, Livepeer is built on a completely open source technology stack, right? Anywhere from anywhere from the video transcoding software to the video streaming software to even the service, all the code that's being used to operate and run Livepeer Studio is all open source, right? So Livepeer Catalyst is a piece of software that is kind of essentially the new Livepeer broadcaster node that allows anyone to host a media server that contains a lot of really powerful video features, and also have that media server be connected to the Livepeer network for video transcoding. And a big portion of that software is Mist Server, which came through an acquisition last year. And Mist Server continues to, when Mist Server joined Livepeer, the first thing that we did together is to open source that entire software package. And I think this was back in Q1 this year when we open sourced that. And since then, we've been continuously adding in new features in Mist Server, and we, in Q2, did another release, Mist Server 3.1, which contains some interesting features. There's a release notes for people who are interested to dig into that software. But for today, I want to focus most of the attention for this portion on Livepeer Studio, right? And I talked about this. Livepeer Studio is a video toolkit for Web3 applications. So what does that really mean? A couple of things. One is it allows you to easily add video streaming capabilities into your hack or your application. It's a really simple step. You can allow users to pick a video file and upload that video file into Livepeer Studio via an API call. Livepeer Studio would take care of ingesting the video, transcoding it, putting it into storage, allowing you to put it in decentralized storage or traditional storage solutions, cache the video, and allow that video to be played back, right? So for the developer, all they see is a video being uploaded into Livepeer and then being prepared, and then it'll be ready for playback. They get a URL back, they can embed it into their application, and they're done. And that's a pretty typical video streaming workflow. The Web3 component here is that as users are uploading these files into Livepeer Studio, they can also selectively export that video into a decentralized storage, right? And so it could be Arweave, could be IPFS, and once that file is exported into a decentralized storage, it can be used to mint a video-based NFT, right? And most of the NFTs that we see today are still kind of image-based, but we're starting to see more and more interesting use cases that come out where NFT itself is kind of evolving past this PFP trend and starting to evolve towards more of a utility trend. So we're seeing a lot of interesting experimentations that are being done in here. And one of the core kind of primitives is for the video itself to be an actual NFT. Another capability that Livepeer Studio provides is adding live streaming into an application or a hack, right? Again, very simple steps. The developer will allow their users to create a live stream channel. And once that is done, a user can start broadcasting a video live stream via a number of different ways, either through a broadcasting software, which is quite popular for streamers on Twitch or YouTube Live, right? They use something called OBS, or they can use a mobile application that are that's on the phone using the phone's camera. However it is done, there's basically a ingest URL that's exposed when the video channel is created, and users can start pushing data in there. As that is done, that's being done, Livepeer Studio is handling all the hard part of ingesting the video, transcoding it, optionally recording the video, and serving that video through the media server. So for the developer, all they have to do is create the stream and then get the playback URL. From there, they can put that URL into their application, and then they're done. In addition, the Web3 component here is really that as the video is being streamed, the developer has the option to limit access to that video stream based on the state on the blockchain. So sometimes people call this token gating. So for example, one of the use cases here is that a creator or a broadcaster can be live streaming, and they can say, oh, only people who own my NFT have the ability to watch this live stream, right? And this is an interesting kind of primitive in the video streaming, Web3 video streaming world, where people are playing with this type of monetization schemes. And for this case, what the developer would do is to implement a webhook handler, and as new viewers request to watch their stream, there will be a request that's sent to their webhook handler, and their webhook handler can implement any kind of access control logic that they want to customize that experience. So those are a few of the current capabilities. We're planning to add many more as in this quarter. This quarter is really focused on improving the developer experience dramatically in order to increase the number of experimentations and applications that are using Livepeer Studio to build Web3 based video streaming applications. And we're already seeing some interesting growth areas that I'll just highlight. One area is decentralized social, right? We're really seeing this trend that's happening where lots of applications or lots of ecosystems are experimenting with what social media can look like in the Web3 context. And that is a really important movement. In fact, last week at CC in Paris, Vitalik even highlighted this as an important mission for the Web3 ecosystem, because of all the existing social problems that are being introduced by today's centralized social media platforms. Right. So here's an example of an application called LensTube. It's an application in the Lens ecosystem. Lens is a kind of a decentralized social networking framework that exists in the Polygon ecosystem. And this is an application that's built using Lens for kind of social graph and social profiles, and using Livepeer for video streaming. And I think it's using Arweave for storage. So what we see here is a pretty interesting experimentation around like what is a decentralized YouTube look like, right? So here you can connect your wallet, you can do tipping with the creators directly, and there's also kind of economic mechanisms that's built in for following or for content creation, things like that. And we're seeing lots of these experiments that are happening in different ecosystems. I just highlighted a few applications that are in the different stages of implementing and integrating using Livepeer Studio. Another interesting area and trends that we're seeing is specifically in the Web3 creator economy. Right. So, the creator economy is something that not just that doesn't only exist in Web3, right? So we see, the creator economy exists in YouTube or in these Substack, right? These existing Web2 applications that essentially help creators to make a living. But what we're seeing through these kind of economic analysis of the existing creator economy tools and platforms is that only the very top few percent of creators actually are able to make a decent living at all. The vast majority, 99% or more than 95% of the creators are not able to make enough money through these platforms, right? And at the same time, they are kind of held hostage to these platforms because as soon as they start creating content or creating, doing their creation on these platforms, they're locked in to these platforms. They don't, they're interacting with their audience through these platforms. They can't take their audience and go somewhere else. Even, for YouTube, even the videos that they actually create are stored in these platforms, and they can't just take the videos and go somewhere else. So because of all these challenges, we're starting to see interesting applications and experiments that are in the Web3 space trying to solve this problem. And this is especially salient in the music industry, but it doesn't it doesn't only exist in music, right? So here is an example called Inflow Music. They have a social token launchpad for musicians, and so musicians can launch their social token on there and sell their tokens to their fan base, and allow their fans to trade for very exclusive or high value experiences or digital assets through the platform. And they use Livepeer to power the video streaming portion, which is important for these musicians. And here I'm also highlighting a few other applications that are in the Web3 creator economy space. And some of these are not even just applications, but they're actually protocols themselves offering things like access control and token gating mechanisms. And Livepeer is in the, they're also in, these applications are also in the different phases of integrating with Livepeer Studio. The third thing that I want to highlight is an area that we're starting to see emerging. It's still earlier than the social applications and the creator applications, but this is an area with lots of potential. So I do want to highlight this, which is kind of the metaverse and gaming sector. We're interested in this sector because we see a lot of existing video streaming needs in the Web2 world, especially for gaming, right? Lots of videos get created kind of looking at other people playing video games or even recording them playing video games. People rewatch sessions. Esports is a really big industry. So all of these things are really good signals that points us to the fact that in the Web3 world, video is also going to be an important tool for gaming applications and metaverse. So here, what I'm highlighting is that very recently, the Livepeer Studio instructions was merged into the Decentraland video streaming official kind of GitHub repo, right? So now when a creator wants to build a new scene in Decentraland and they need to stream video in some fashion, they'll have very clear instructions in how to use Livepeer to do that. And we're already seeing some of these things happen, where people will host events in the metaverse and would want to maybe live stream some content from the real world to make those events more engaging in the virtual world. And vice versa, we're starting to see some needs around being able to stream the video from within the metaverse out, so that even for people who are not actively participating in the metaverse can still understand what is going on at those events. Maybe they can go back and rewatch it. Maybe they can see a couple of videos before deciding on which experience to jump into. Yeah, so that's a little bit about the update for product. As I said, next quarter we're focused on getting a lot more, getting much deeper into each of these verticals, introducing more Web3 specific features to power these new use cases, and work with the developers to kind of evolve this product.
Very nice. If anybody has any questions for Eric, go ahead and throw them in the chat. Okay. If anything comes up, once again, we'll answer those at the very end. But for now, we're going to go over to Yondon, who will talk about Web3 native video R&D. What are you?
All right, thank you. Share my screen. Cool. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the R&D work that we've done in Web3 native video over the course of the past 1 to 2 months. And to start things off, I want to frame the update and progress report around composability and what composability means in a Web 2 context relative to a Web 3 context, because this has definitely been front of mind for us as we've thought about what to spend time on in R&D. So what's interesting is that composability in Web 3 is a term that gets tossed around a lot. But if we just take the word at face value, composability has been something that has been around for a long time. In Web 2, composability really just means that developers can combine different APIs to build something greater than the sum of its parts. You didn't need Web 3 to do that. You could do that in Web 2. However, there's an asterisk, right? Which is in Web 2, the APIs were not credibly neutral, meaning that you have no guarantees that an API provider treats one developer the same as the other. And you also have minimal guarantees around access, and access can often be revoked, modified by singular unaccountable entities, which can create a chilling effect on developer innovation. And when this comes up in mainstream conversation, the first thing a lot of people think about is, well, a lot of the cases of API access being revoked is legitimate. It could be cases of an API being misused by a developer for malicious purposes. But the reality is that more and more you see a lot of cases where API access is revoked, the rules of a platform are changed from underneath the developer. And oftentimes there is no accountability in that process. And as a result, it can become quite challenging for a developer to build anything sustainable with the long term in mind, because the rules can change from underneath you at a whim. So how does Web3 differ? Well, composability in Web3, the main difference is the permissionless aspect of it, right? The ability to not only combine different APIs to build something greater than the sum of its parts, but to be able to do that in a permissionless manner, to be able to do that with guarantees, to be able to do that with APIs that are credibly neutral. So that's Web 2 composability versus Web 3 composability. And the reason that is worthwhile keeping in mind is that Eric just gave a great update about Studio. But when we think about Web 3 native video and the question of what does it mean to continue to build out a Web 3 native video ecosystem, I think Web 3 composability can be something that helps us frame what we should focus on. So Studio is definitely meant to be the easiest to use tool to compose the Livepeer protocol with other Web3 protocols and services. Emphasis on the easiest to use tool. However, in order to achieve Web3 composability, it is also important for Studio to not be the only tool. So as Eric mentioned, we have Catalyst, which you can think of as a self-operated full node in the network. And we also have other we can have the potential to build other DMS-based services, DMS standing for Decentralized Media Server, the media server suite that powers Catalyst, that powers Livepeer Studio. And the reason that access to all of these tools is important, even if Studio is the easiest to use tool to access the Livepeer protocol, is that the more tools that we have to access the API, the more we're able to move towards a world where we're quote unquote locking the API open. So instead of living in a world where APIs can be closed off at a whim, you've essentially locked the API open in that you cannot close it back down. And the way that you achieve that is having different tools to access the same API, which is why something that we've been thinking about and looking into is what would it take in order to achieve a quote unquote standard DMS API, a standard decentralized media server API for ingest and playback. And some previous work that is worth referencing here, in case people are not familiar with this notion of a standard API, is Ethereum. So most people actually, well, a lot of people do. There are people that self-operate their own full nodes or run light clients, but a lot of people also rely on a variety of service providers. And there's a rich ecosystem around providing access to the Ethereum network through a variety of tools. And that's why the Ethereum protocol API and the way that you access block data and transaction data, that's something that for all general purposes, that API is locked open. You can access it through a multitude of tools. And the reason you can do this is because there is this standard API, this standard JSON RPC API that some people might be familiar with. So in the top image we have here, we have the Ethereum wiki page, which describes the standard API. And in the bottom image, you can see the docs for Infura, a provider of that API, that demonstrates that it supports all of these different API endpoints that are also included in that standard specification. So you can query a full node that you're running, a full node someone else is running. You can query Infura, Alchemy, and you have API access and multitude of choices. So that API is open to you. So what would this look like for Livepeer? This is something that we've been thinking about in the last bit of time. And I think this image at a high level describes what this would look like. So the bottom half of the image should be pretty familiar for most folks, and that's the orchestrator network in Livepeer, where you could see you have all these orchestrator nodes on the bottom, and effectively what they receive are compute jobs, so oftentimes transcoding, and what they provide are compute results, oftentimes the results of transcoding. And these orchestrator nodes are all wrapped in the same layer, and you can think of all of them implementing the standard orchestration API on the network. And that's what allows Studio or any other broadcaster node on the network to seamlessly switch and alternate between orchestrators, and it's because of that shared API layer. However, historically, the same was not necessarily true for the ingest and playback layer. So ingest being how do you actually send streams to the network, and playback being how you actually play back streams from the network. So we could actually follow the orchestration API model in this layer as well. So what you see at the top half of this image is that all of these different components rely on the same decentralized media server software. So you have Catalyst on the left, you have Livepeer Studio in the middle, and you have quote unquote some gateway that might be operated by a third party that also wraps together the DMS software. And the thing that ties all of these together is this shared DMS API layer. And why that is important and useful is that now when you think about it from an ingest standpoint, when a stream comes in, you could go to any of these different API providers. When you want to play back a stream, the same holds true. You relied on this shared interface, this shared layer, and any of these could be valid providers for playback. Now, some of them are going to be better than others, right? And that's why Studio is so important. It's meant to be the easiest to use tool, but from the standpoint of having open access to the API, this availability of choice is important. So that's something that we've been thinking about recently, which is how can we support this standard DMS API in the DMS software itself, as well as other providers like Studio. And as a part of that, we've also been trying to move to this model where streams are not just exclusive to Studio, but we start to think about them as Livepeer protocol and Livepeer network streams. And in order to achieve this, we've been thinking about how to adjust 3 different things. So protocol level identification of streams, stream sharing support between different DMS providers. So this is Studio, Catalyst, some gateway in that previous image. And also minimizing friction by minimizing trust in these providers and putting more of the authority in end users. So we've been working, this isn't a formalized name yet, but just something that we've been referring to internally is something called verifiable video streams. And we think it addresses the problems, can address the problems mentioned before, as well as some additional problems we've seen in this space. So this includes the lack of immutable links to live streams, the lack of efficient playback and data verifiability for video on demand streams, and then the thing I just mentioned, the lack of protocol level identification of streams. So right now, if you have a stream, it's a Studio stream. It's not necessarily a network stream. And running a little bit low on time, so I'll just gloss over this and won't go into anything too technical. But if people are interested, definitely feel free to reach out. But the basic concepts that we're looking into right now are very much borrowing from the rest of the decentralized web space, where we can address live streams and address VOD streams in a way such that anyone that requests a stream has a unique identifier for that stream. And using that unique identifier, they have all the information that they would need in order to verify that the content of the stream is correct and who the exact origin of the stream is in the case of a live stream. And all of this can be cryptographically verifiable. And the reason that we think this is interesting is we think this will be a building block not only for that standard DMS API vision that I mentioned previously, but there's a number of other interesting applications for this building block as well, ranging from experiences around authenticated end user identity for both live streams and VOD streams. This concept of immutable stream URIs, where you can start referencing this global stream identifier in NFT metadata, smart contracts, and link to content, not to location. And this is something you're already accustomed to with files, with systems like IPFS and Arweave, but this is bringing this concept to streaming data as well. And lastly, we think this can be an important building block to enable more secure peer-to-peer delivery networks as well. So those are some of the things that we think this can enable, and we've been spending time working through the technical designs for this building block and hope to share more publicly soon, but wanted to give people a little bit of a preview and motivation for the work that we've been doing in this area. So that wraps up my update.
Okay, thank you very much. We're right at time. If anybody has a last second real quick question, feel free to throw that out. Otherwise, you can also always send us a message on Twitter or anywhere else, Discord, and reach out to either any of the speakers or just the community in general there to talk about any of these topics. So while I was talking, okay, not seeing any questions right now. So thank you very much to everybody for coming and for everybody who joined us in the live stream. The recording will be up soon on all of our channels. And if you haven't already, make sure to sign up for the Livepeer Community Calendar to get updates for events like this and other events, conferences, things like that. The link is, I think, some recent tweets on our Twitter have it. It's also on the Livepeer Discord under announcements. So yeah, thank you everybody for coming.